Hello, and welcome to How to Get Promoted. Today we're going to be going over the tips, tricks, and tactics you can use to ensure that your career stays on a steady incline so that you don't stagnate and be stuck in one position for longer than necessary. And if you've been in this role, whether you're an electrician, a HVAC tech, a painter, or a plumber, your goal is the same. You don't want to stay in that position forever. You want more for yourself. And I can tell you that number one thing right there, your attitude and your drive is what's going to separate you from everybody else. I can't tell you how many times I've had people on teams that their only goal for that day or that night is what are they going to have for dinner. People know more about what they don't want than what they do want. They don't have a 5-year plan mapped out. And I get it, it's hard, it's difficult, but you have to have some vision. So making sure that you stay true and that's something that resonates with you, whether you want to be a master electrician, a master plumber, a master carpenter, whatever it is, you do need to keep telling yourself that over and over so that you know what you're working towards. I've hired people for specific positions that had nothing, no long-term goal with being in engineering, but I wanted them on the staff because I knew that if they wanted to be an airline pilot in 3 to 5 years, that they were going to work towards something bigger and I could count on them because they were going to be reliable. So having goals is a great thing. So what do you need to do? Well, if you were to draw a circle and put something in the bullseye, what is the number one thing you can do to put yourself apart from everybody else? And that is initiative. Keep taking initiative. Keep working hard, have that work ethic, and make sure that no matter what it is, you're willing to try, you're willing to fail, and you're willing to learn. I can tell you that most people on the team, they want to be handed an assignment that details exactly what they're going to be doing for that day. That's all they're going to do for the day so that they can punch in, punch out for lunch, and punch out when they go home. That's all that they want to do. And that's okay. Your team needs people like that. They don't need everybody at the highest level possible. There's going to be a time and place for everybody, and if you're watching this, that means that you're not going to be stuck there. So congratulations to you. You're taking initiative, as we just talked about, number one. Next, I want to let you know that I've printed out steps for how to go from positions Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, and I've asked people on the team who are in specific roles if they'd like to complete that. I had 1 out of 40. Let me repeat that. 1 person out of 40 who decided that they wanted to take that challenge. Now, the first thing you have to keep in mind when how to get promoted is, are you being reasonable? I think your goals are reasonable, but are your timelines reasonable? Is this something that can be done within a reasonable period of time? If you've been hired and you've only been there for 3 weeks and your goal is to be moved up the ladder quickly, I don't think that's reasonable. So make sure that you're realistic with yourself. Don't set yourself up for failure and get frustrated. So put a long-term goal on there. It's like weight loss, right? People that are 50 pounds overweight, you're not gonna wake up tomorrow, run 26 miles and decide that it's all gonna shed off because you're working hard that day. No, it's gonna take some time, but that's okay. Set up a little milestone so that you can continue to check. So what does that entail? What is being realistic? Let's start from the beginning. Let's assume that you're an entry-level technician. What can you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is sit down with your supervisor or your boss and come up with a list of items that he or she believe are going to help move the needle for you in that department. I can tell you what I've done in the past on this spreadsheet I created for 1 out of 40 was pretty simple. It did take some time, but it was a lot of redundant work that were strengthening his foundation. It was something like run 1,000 room calls. Now, 1,000 room calls for us equated to approximately 6 months. Additionally, it had change 10 outlets, change 10 garbage disposals, work on 10 refrigerators, work on 15 dishwashers, shadow a kitchen appliance technician for 2 weeks, so on and so forth. But they were all really simple things that could have been done throughout the day in some downtime. And again, it's showing that you're willing to take initiative. So if your boss gives you a list, hey, today I think you should look at changing 10 outlets. Well, don't wait for those room calls to go to align perfectly with your list. Just go out there and change an outlet, because the principle and practice is going to be exactly the same whether you're doing it on a call or whether you're just doing it to change out an old receptacle. something that's well worth it. So initiative. If I could name number two would be attitude. We have a choice every day to wake up and be in a good mood. If you were to look at what determines somebody's happiness, they've done studies on it, look it up, it's called happiness pie. Now, out of this pie, they say 40% of your happiness, 50% of your happiness is genetic, okay? I'm sorry, mom, dad, if they weren't happy people, well, maybe you're not gonna be that happy after all. I'm kidding. But 50% of your happiness is genetic, right? It's your upbringing, it's your parents, if they were stressed, whatever you want to get into it. I'm not a geneticist, but 50% of it is genetic. 40% are your thoughts and actions, okay? 40% of your happiness comes from what you think about, what things mean to you, and then what you're going to decide to do about it. The last 10% of your happiness comes from external factors. So whatever you have going on in the outside world, whether it's a bad relationship, you're in debt, your car broke down, you broke your leg, whatever it is, that only equates to 10% of your overall happiness. So you cannot use what you have going on in your exterior life as a factor for determining the level of your attitude. So making sure that you're taking initiative on things, and then ensuring that your attitude is in check every single day, that you're coachable, teachable, and it's something that you're willing to work with other people is going to be a huge driver of your success. They recently published an article that said 84% of companies are willing to hire someone who is underqualified but is coachable and trainable. So even if you don't have the skill sets needed, they can identify whether you're someone that they want to work with or not, simply based on your behaviors and your mannerisms. So ensuring that those are constantly in check and irrespective of what's going on is going to be a huge advantage for you. I was talking with a general manager of a property one time, who I happen to know very well. I also knew his assistant general manager, and I said, hey, would you ever consider hiring this person for your role? And he said, unfortunately, no. And I said, what would be the biggest reason why you wouldn't promote this individual? And he said that regardless of what was going on, you could always see what that person had been experiencing that day, whether they were happy, whether they were sad. They would wear their emotions on their sleeve. And he said the reason he didn't like that is because the one thing he looked for in a manager was that regardless of what was going on through the day, that they were going to remain calm, cool, and collected. Because as a leader, you need to ensure that you are sending the right message to people, that you have everything under control. You're going to have a lot of different things as you advance in your career, and you have to remember that problems don't go away, they just become higher quality problems. So rather than dealing with clogged toilets in the beginning, you're now dealing with how to calculate flow rates and volume if you were to add X amount of toilets in specific rooms, right? So the problems just become higher quality ones, which is great, and that's what you're after. But making sure that you remain diplomatic, cool, calm, and collected, coupled with taking initiative, is really going to drive you to that next step. Lastly, I would say the big three, the third item is going to be a constant and never-ending learner. Somebody that understands that learning doesn't stop at the end of graduation, whether that's high school, college, or trade school. It's going to be something that you need to continuously do. And taking this course is a great example of somebody who is willing to go the extra mile for themselves. They're willing to invest in themselves. The best investment you can make is the investment of yourself, and making sure you're reading, whether it's a hobby and something that has nothing to do with your current role, or something that's very skill specific. Keep going with that, because it's going to foster your mindset of growth, and it's not going to have scarcity, and you're going to always be in that receptive mindset, because you know that, as I mentioned earlier, problems don't go away, they just become higher quality. Well, you're going to transition as you continue up the ranks in whatever career path you choose, from electrical to plumbing to carpentry, that you're going to find you're going to have to work a lot less with this and more with this. So your skill set is going to get you only so far, and then it's going to turn into your mindset. So again, the big three things are taking initiative, always take initiative. 2, attitude. Make sure that you wake up and decide that you're going to have a good day. You're going to be positive. You're going to be coachable. You're going to be teachable. You're going to be receptive to whatever's going on, and you're not going to respond emotionally to things. You're going to be logical, reasonable, and diplomatic. And then finally, the third item that we just mentioned is a constant and never-ending self-improver. Somebody that takes information and then learns how to apply it. So those are the three things that I believe and I have personally promoted people for. I'll leave you with one last example. A gentleman I used to work with who worked evening shifts. I promoted him from evening shift to assistant chief engineer in about 8 months. How did he do it? Well, in the evening, he would leave, our shifts wouldn't overlap for very long, but when they did, it was very informative, very helpful, and he provided a lot of value to me. How did he do that? By sharing everything that he possibly could. When I'd come in the next morning on his shift, he would leave detailed notes along with ordering supplies and any additional information that he would need. He would also follow up with a shift recap, right? He would give me more in useful value than I was currently paying him in cash value. And that is the key takeaway. Always give people more in useful value than you're taking from them in cash value. So if someone says, hey, can you change that outlet? Don't just go change that outlet. Change the outlet, change the cover plate. If you're looking down, realize that the baseboard needs to be replaced. If you look up, how's the switch look? Why don't you change the switch while you're at it? And then if the light fixture's there, maybe it's an old light fixture, and since the power's off and you're changing these two things, why not do the third light fixture as well? So that if your boss comes in and says, I only asked you to change the outlet or the receptacle, but you changed the switch, the light fixture, and you replaced the baseboard? Wow, thank you. So those are some helpful tips. I hope that provides some insight to you, and I know that those three things are going to help move the needle for you the furthest, the fastest, and I look forward to continuing our journey.